Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. Olivia bolted upright, her heart hammering as the shrill ringtone pierced the hush of midnight. The screen of her phone glowed in the darkness, illuminating the bedroom's pale walls and revealing a single name, Jonathan. She swallowed hard. Why would he call at this hour? A faint rustle broke the silence. Stephen, her husband, stirred and reached out from under the covers. Moonlight filtered through a gap in the curtains, tracing the edges of his face. His eyes fluttered open. "Olivia?" he muttered, voice thick with sleep. "Who's calling you now?" She fumbled for an excuse, clearing her throat. I think it's just a wrong number," she whispered, pressing the phone to her chest as if to stifle the vibration. Her fingers trembled around the device. Stephen pushed himself up against the headboard, rubbing at his eyes. "A wrong number at 1 in the morning?" he asked suspiciously. His usual warmth had a slight edge now. She forced a quick smile. "It's fine, I'll handle it. Go back to sleep." The phone went silent before she could answer the call, sending her heart into a swirl of relief and dread. Had Jonathan hung up? Was he going to call again? She refused to look at the phone just yet, afraid of any new messages that might pop up on the screen. Stephen yawned. "All right," he sighed, rubbing his shoulder. "But if it's important, don't." She nodded too quickly. "I'll let you know," she promised, wishing he would just lie back down and drift off. Outside, wind whistled against the siding. The autumn chill had arrived early in their suburban neighborhood. Leaves scraped along the windows, a whispery chorus that set her nerves on edge. Olivia exhaled shakily, half wishing she could blame her trembling on the drop in temperature rather than the name that still glowed in her mind. Stephen finally shifted, pulling the blanket over his chest. "I'm beat, it's been a long day," he murmured, his eyelids drooping once more. Olivia gently patted his shoulder. "Yeah, me too." She waited until his breathing evened out, slow and deep, and then carefully slid out of bed. The bedroom floor felt colder than usual under her bare feet. She crept toward the window, phone in hand. The night's hush pressed in from every direction. Her reflection on the dark glass mirrored her own fearful expression. Buzz. The phone vibrated again, light flashing. Instinctively, she tapped the screen to see a message preview. "Answer me." A sense of panic closed around her like a tightening grip. She dared not open the text fully, not with Stephen mere feet away. She tiptoed out of the bedroom, each floorboard threatening to groan under her weight. The hallway was swallowed in shadows except for a tiny amber glow from a nightlight near the kids' room. She could hear the faint hum of the heater kicking on, but every other sound was still. Sliding open the door to the small balcony, she stepped outside. A gust of crisp air greeted her, fluttering her worn shirt and sending goosebumps along her arms. In the distance, street lamps cast quiet orange halos over the silent road. She could see the neighbor's maple tree, leaves dancing in the breeze like ghostly confetti. With a deep breath, Olivia finally unlocked her phone. 2 messages from Jonathan. The first was short. "Pick up." The second, "Answer me." Her lungs felt constricted. For a moment, memories flickered. A conference room where Jonathan once smiled at her with that self-assured smirk. A short text conversation from months ago that she'd tried so hard to bury. A pang of excitement and guilt that lingered afterward. She typed a quick reply, her fingers stiff. "It's too late. Stop calling." Then she hit send before she could second-guess herself. Immediately, a new message arrived. "We need to talk, Leave. Don't ignore me this time." Her heart pounded. She glanced inside through the partially open curtains to where Stephen slept. She could see the silhouette of him, unmoving, as if the entire house's peace depended on his oblivious slumber. "Tomorrow," she typed back. "I can't do this now." A long moment passed with no further response. She clutched the phone, eyes stinging with anxiety. What was she doing? Why couldn't she just block him? Yet she knew that ignoring Jonathan wouldn't make the situation vanish. It would only tighten the invisible knot that had begun constricting her marriage. Olivia exhaled, her breath fogging in the chilly air. As if on cue, a wind gust rattled the balcony railing and she clutched her phone closer. Tomorrow. She would figure something out, anything, just not tonight. The phone stayed silent. Inside, Stephen's breathing remained steady, unbroken. She ran her hand through her long, messy hair and turned her gaze upward to the moon, half hidden by wisps of cloud. A silent question circled in her mind. How did I let it get this far? Before she could sink deeper into doubts, she quietly slipped back inside. The hush of the bedroom cloaked her again. Easing the door shut, she carefully pulled the blankets over herself. Stephen barely stirred. She stared at the ceiling, phone resting on the bedside table, heart still galloping. That single name glowed faintly in her mind. Jonathan. She felt the weight of secrets pressing on her chest, certain that this was only the beginning of something she might not be able to stop. She closed her eyes, trying and failing to will her thoughts to silence. Outside, the wind scuttled leaves across the sidewalk. Tomorrow loomed large, a threat and a promise all at once. Morning came with a reluctant pale light that crept through the blinds. Olivia awoke, groggy, her phone's alarm buzzing on the nightstand. She shot a glance at Stephen, who was already up, pulling on a crisp button-down shirt. Their kids' laughter echoed from somewhere down the hallway, an early sign of a typical day, at least for everyone else. She still felt a hollow knot in her stomach. "Hey," Stephen said, adjusting his collar in the mirror. "I'm running late. I might have to leave soon. There's a breakfast meeting downtown." He leaned over, placing a quick peck on her forehead. The affectionate gesture lacked its usual warmth, more of a rote routine than genuine closeness. She mustered a small smile, scanning his face for any hint that he remembered last night's odd phone call. If he did, he didn't show it. "You're always running late," she said softly, trying to keep her tone light. He shrugged, an apologetic half-smile flickering across his lips. "This new project is insane. I swear, once it's done, I'll be around more." The conversation ended there, overshadowed by the beep from his phone reminding him of the time. In under 2 minutes, he was gone, calling a hurried goodbye to the kids as he rushed out. Olivia slumped back on the bed. The sheets felt cold and the room strangely quiet without Stephen's presence. That half-finished conversation left her feeling unsteady, as if the ground beneath her was starting to crack. She didn't have long to dwell on it. Her 2 children burst in 7-year-old Emily and 5-year-old Daniel, both wanting to say goodbye before their carpool ride. "Mommy, can we have pizza tonight?" Emily chirped, her blonde curls bouncing. Olivia tried to muster a more genuine smile. "We'll see, honey." They gave her quick hugs and then darted off. As their voices receded, the silence returned, accompanied by the weight of that midnight phone call. She inhaled, feeling her chest tighten at the memory. Jonathan's name, the cold air on the balcony, her rapid heartbeat. Ding, her phone buzzed with a reminder. She had planned to meet her friend Diana for coffee at 10 a.m. She forced herself to rise, determined to keep the rest of her day normal, or at least pretend. An hour later, Olivia approached the cozy cafe near her office. A crisp breeze carried the scent of roasted beans and hinted at the changing season. The city's morning rush was in full swing, people in tailored suits or casual jackets hurrying along the sidewalk. She spotted Diana immediately, seated by the window, wearing a sleek navy blazer that contrasted with her warm hazel eyes. Diana smiled, waving her over. "There you are, I already grabbed you a latte." Olivia slid into the seat opposite her. "Thank you," she murmured, fingers wrapping around the paper cup, savoring its warmth against the morning chill. Diana's expression was bright, yet inquisitive. "You okay? You look a bit—" She trailed off, eyebrows knitting together. "Tired?" That word, tired. It felt like an understatement. "I couldn't sleep well," Olivia admitted. She attempted a laugh, but it fell flat. "Just everything, you know. Stephen's been so busy, the kids need me, and I guess life's hectic." She swirled her latte, eyes darting briefly to her phone, half expecting another message from Jonathan. She'd set the phone to silent this time, out of self-preservation. Diana took a sip from her cup. "You sure that's it? Come on, we've known each other for ages. Spill." Olivia hesitated. Diana was a good friend, reliable, direct, caring. She also happened to be very perceptive. Could she confide in her about Jonathan? That might open a can of worms she wasn't ready to handle. "It's just Stephen and I haven't been connecting lately," she offered, picking at the cardboard sleeve of her cup. "He's so caught up in his projects, and I guess I feel disconnected, that's all. It's probably just a phase." Diana gave her a sympathetic look. "You guys have been married? What, 9 years now? Ups and downs happen. Maybe plan some date nights, steal a weekend away together?" Olivia exhaled. "Yeah, maybe," she echoed. She bit her lower lip, suppressing the urge to mention that last night, in the dead of midnight, she'd nearly had a meltdown because an old friend, acquaintance, something more complicated. An old flame was calling her phone. They chatted a bit longer about mundane office gossip, a new hire messing up a client presentation, someone's rumored promotion. Yet with every passing moment, Olivia felt the creeping tension in her chest. She was lying by omission, and it gnawed at her. "Well," Diana said, checking her watch, "I've got to head back. My lunch meeting got pushed up. You good?" "Yeah," Olivia lied, gulping the last of her latte. "I'm good. Thanks for the coffee." They said their goodbyes. Outside, the sun had climbed higher but provided little warmth. Olivia closed her coat against a sudden chill. The day felt both too bright and too cold, mirroring her internal conflict, the fear that her life was about to shift in ways she couldn't control. As she turned toward her office, her phone buzzed from inside her purse. Her throat tightened. Was it Jonathan again, or Stephen, or maybe just some spam call? With a trembling hand, she pulled it out and glanced at the screen. A single text stared back at her. "We need to talk soon." The sender's name, Jonathan. She drew a ragged breath, looking up at the stream of people passing by, each lost in their own world. Everything around her seemed so ordinary, while she stood on the brink of a predicament that felt anything but. Clutching her phone, Olivia walked on, forcing each step. Her entire day was about to unfold under the shadow of that message, and she had no idea how to make it stop. The glass doors of Randall and Associates gleamed in the midday sun. Olivia hesitated, smoothing down her blouse, an off-white silk piece that matched her black pencil skirt. She wanted to project calm professionalism if only her racing pulse would cooperate. Inside, the lobby buzzed. Receptionists answered calls in crisp, efficient tones, and coworkers milled about, exchanging quick updates between meetings. Olivia tried to hide her tension under a polite smile. Her desk was on the 7th floor, so she tapped the elevator button and stepped in, relieved to find it momentarily empty. Until it wasn't. Just as the doors started to close, someone slid in. She glimpsed a flash of a dark suit jacket, and then that voice low, with a quiet confidence that simultaneously unsettled and captivated her. "Olivia," Jonathan greeted, pressing the door open button to keep them from lurching upward. His eyes, a penetrating shade of gray, locked onto hers. "You made it in. I was beginning to think you were avoiding me." Her stomach twisted. She forced a calm expression. "I'm working, Jonathan," she said, pressing the button again to resume their ascent. "We can't do this here." He let out a soft chuckle that carried a hint of mockery. "You didn't answer my earlier text." She glanced at the elevator's panel, each floor lighting up in a slow climb, as though mocking the tension in the tiny space. "I'm busy," she insisted, brushing a stray lock of hair away from her eyes. "We'll talk later." He shifted closer, though not enough to be overtly inappropriate if anyone else were present, yet near enough that her nerves spiked. "Later never comes," he murmured, arching a brow. "That's the same excuse you gave me last time." A memory flooded her mind. Months ago, an after-hours project meeting that lasted too long, culminating in a conversation that felt dangerously personal. She'd told him, maybe later, but ended up dodging him for weeks. Now it was all crashing back. His suit carried a hint of an expensive, spicy cologne. She swallowed, trying not to let it pull her into recollections she had no business dwelling on. "Jonathan, we're at the office," she repeated firmly. "And I don't want to cause a scene." He gave a half-smile. "Good point." The elevator dinged at the 7th floor. The doors slid open to reveal the corridor of cubicles and offices. Olivia stepped out quickly, her heels clicking on the polished floor. Jonathan followed. No sooner had she begun walking toward her cubicle than she heard a familiar voice. Olivia! It was Dennis, her team lead. Tall, with a friendly yet businesslike demeanor, he approached them with a grin. "Hey, just in time," Dennis said, adjusting the files under his arm. "I'd like you to meet our new consultant on the Carlson project." He turned to Jonathan, oblivious to the tension crackling between them. "Jonathan, correct?" Olivia's heart pounded like a drum solo in her chest. "So he's joining the Carlson project. Perfect." She mustered what she hoped was a professional smile. "Yes, we've met." Dennis frowned, noticing the awkward pause. "Oh, great. Then you already know each other? Makes things easier. Jonathan's going to provide strategic planning input, so you two might be working closely." Her stomach did a somersault. That's good news," she lied, ignoring Jonathan's amused glance. Dennis handed her a manila folder. "Here are the preliminary documents. We have a meeting in 10 minutes. Conference room B." "Sure thing," she replied, her voice strained. Dennis nodded and strode off. The moment he was out of earshot, Jonathan leaned in slightly. "Working closely. Sounds fun," he teased. Olivia shot him a warning glare. "Keep it professional," she hissed. Then, hugging the folder to her chest, she headed down the hallway. In the conference room, the hum of an overhead projector provided a steady background drone. A handful of team members were already seated around the table, laptops open. Olivia chose a seat near the far end, hoping to keep some distance. Jonathan took a chair diagonally across, giving him a clear line of sight to her. She tried focusing on Dennis's presentation, slides about timelines, budget outlines, brand strategies, but she could practically feel Jonathan's gaze. It prickled across her skin like static electricity. Once or twice she dared glance his way, only to find him studying her with an intensity that made her avert her eyes. "Which is where Jonathan comes in," Dennis was saying, tapping the projector remote. "He'll help refine these processes. Olivia, I'll want you to handle the creative briefs and coordinate with his input." A flutter of panic crept through her chest, but she nodded calmly in front of everyone else. "Absolutely. Thanks. Let's do a quick conda." Dennis scanned the room, noticing people glancing at their watches. "We'll keep it brief. It's nearly lunch." For the next few minutes, team members asked routine questions. Jonathan fielded a few with polished ease, his confidence evident. Every so often, he'd drop a subtle side comment, something like, "We don't want to delay this any further, right, Olivia?" which carried a hidden meaning only she could detect. After the meeting, the group dispersed. Olivia swiftly gathered her notes, head lowered, hoping to dart out before Jonathan cornered her again. But as she made her way toward the door, he was right there, offering that practiced smile. "About earlier," he said, voice low. "We should have lunch. Clear the air." She shook her head, keeping her tone polite but firm. "I'm busy. Another day." He lifted one eyebrow, stepping aside to let her pass first. "Fine," he murmured. "But don't forget sometimes you can't run forever." She strode off, refusing to dignify that with a reply. Yet her pulse pounded. He was right about one thing. She couldn't keep running. Sooner or later she'd have to face him and the complicated mixture of fear and fascination she felt. By the time she reached her desk, the tension had left her nearly breathless. She dropped into her chair, scanning the folder contents, but the words blurred on the page. "I won't get involved again," she told herself fiercely. "Whatever we had, it's over." Yet part of her, a deep, hidden part, recognized that vow was easier said than followed, especially when he was now tied to her professional life. She slipped her phone from her purse, quickly checking for any missed calls or texts from Stephen. Nothing. A pang of guilt washed over her for even feeling relief about that. She recalled the midnight phone call, the hush of the balcony, and Jonathan's cryptic messages. She had walked into this day hoping to bury all that. Instead, it had followed her right through the front doors of Randall and Associates, wearing a tailored suit and a knowing smirk. Olivia closed her eyes for just a moment, her fingertips cold. She repeated the silent mantra, "I will not let this happen again." But deep down, she sensed her determination might not be strong enough to outrun whatever they'd started. The drive home felt endless despite the freeway being relatively clear. Dusk painted the sky in bruised purples and pinks, and Olivia kept the radio low to avoid crowding her mind with more noise. Her phone rested in the cup holder, silent. She hadn't heard from Jonathan since that unnerving exchange in the conference room. But her shoulders remained tense, and her thoughts cycled through the day's events. Jonathan was back in her orbit, forced there by job responsibilities she couldn't escape. And ironically, Stephen, the one person who might ground her, seemed more absent than ever. Arriving at her suburban home, she noticed Stephen's car in the driveway. It was unusual for him to return early. She parked beside him, an odd mixture of relief and apprehension swirling inside her. Inside the house, she found Stephen rummaging around the kitchen, pulling out pots and pans. The smell of garlic and onions hung in the air. He glanced up, forcing a crooked grin. "Surprise," he said. "I decided to cook dinner tonight." "Wow," Olivia replied, slipping off her heels. She tried to inject warmth into her voice. "That's sweet of you." He shrugged, stoking the stove's flame. "Thought maybe we could all eat together for once, you know?" Emily and Daniel are in the living room, finishing up their homework. She set her purse aside, stepping closer to watch him stir a simmering sauce. The domestic scene felt almost foreign. Lately, it was usually her heating up leftovers while Stephen came home late, or Stephen grabbing takeout on the way in. "I appreciate this," she said quietly. He gave a slight nod. "Wanted to talk to you about something, too." Her pulse skipped. That was never a relaxing phrase. "Sure. Is everything okay?" He hesitated, turning down the stove's heat. "I've been thinking we should get away for a weekend," he said at last, his tone gentle but a bit anxious. "Take the kids to the coast or maybe just the countryside. We haven't done anything fun as a family in ages." Relief and guilt tangled in her chest. She'd expected him to mention last night's phone call or some suspicion about her changed demeanor. Instead, he was proposing a family trip. She blinked, forcing a genuine smile. "That sounds lovely," she managed. He exhaled, and the tension in his shoulders relaxed. "Great. Let's plan it soon." Dinner turned into a calm affair, a delicate balance of conversation about the kids' day, a quick laugh at some silly story Daniel told, and half-hearted teasing about Stephen's cooking methods. Yet a certain distance hovered. Despite sitting side by side, Olivia felt a heavy cloak of secrets pressing against her ribs. After tidying up, they settled the children into their bedtime routine. Later, in the quiet of their bedroom, Stephen brought up the idea of the trip once more. "How about next weekend?" he suggested, flipping through his phone's calendar. "I can push back some meetings." She lay on the bed, scrolling aimlessly through her own schedule. "I might have a big project, but maybe I can swing it." She paused, thinking of Jonathan's involvement. The notion of leaving for a few days worried her. "Let me confirm tomorrow." He nodded. "Cool?" The corners of his mouth twitched, as if he wanted to say more. Instead, he set his phone aside and turned to her. "Hey, everything okay with you?" Her heart jolted. "Why do you ask?" He fiddled with the edge of the blanket. "I don't know. You've been quieter than usual. And last night that phone call? You sure it was nothing?" She swallowed, her throat going dry. "It was a random caller, really. Must have been a wrong number or maybe a sales scam. It's not important." He studied her face for a moment, eyes probing. "All right," he said, sounding unsure. Then he lightly squeezed her hand. "I'm here if you want to talk." She gave a small nod, not trusting herself to speak. The kindness in his voice only intensified the swirl of guilt and fear. She turned off her bedside lamp, feigning exhaustion. "Let's get some rest." In the darkness, they lay side by side, so close that she could hear his measured breathing. Yet the emotional chasm yawned wider, bridging it with forced small talk and unspoken questions. The next day, a numb routine enveloped Olivia at work, emails, calls, files. She tried burying herself in tasks, but the tension was inescapable. A portion of her day was spent drafting creative briefs for the Carlson project, which meant synergy with Jonathan's input. She hated how every aspect of her professional life now threatened to drag her into proximity with him. That evening, she arrived home drained. She'd scarcely kicked off her shoes when Stephen approached, attempting a half-smile. "Hey, did you get a chance to think about next weekend?" She rubbed her temple. "Work's complicated," she admitted. "Could we postpone for a bit?" His expression fell. We keep postponing everything, Liv. He caught himself, forcing calm. I just want us to do something together as a family. I miss spending real time with you and the kids. Her chest tightened. Stephen, I do too, she said softly. But the timing. The Carlson project just ramped up and... So it's the job again? He asked. The disappointment in his eyes stung. When does it ever end? She fought the impulse to snap back that he'd also been consumed by work, but she knew he'd been trying harder lately. Instead, she simply shrugged, words dying on her lips. Stephen raked a hand through his hair. Maybe if we both prioritize it, we can make it happen, he reasoned, voice carrying a hint of frustration. We'll figure it out. Before she could respond, her phone chimed. She fished it from her bag, glancing at the screen. It was a random notification, but Stephen narrowed his gaze, picking up on her tension. He exhaled heavily. Look, how about we talk after dinner? It doesn't have to be a fight. I just want to be on the same page. She nodded, watching him walk away. The idea of discussing anything deeper, especially if he started digging into what was really bothering her, left her stomach in knots. After a simple meal together, they lingered in the living room. The children were engaged with a board game on the rug. Stephen and Olivia retreated to the sofa, each sipping from mugs of tea. A hush stretched between them. He cleared his throat. So, let's not argue. We've lost track of each other, Liv. I'm worried. She clutched her mug. I know, she admitted, her voice subdued. I feel it too. She couldn't bring herself to mention Jonathan outright, or the midnight call, or the swirl of confused emotions overshadowing her, so she fell back on partial truths about general stress and feeling burnt out. Well, Stephen said, leaning forward, I want to fix it. I'm not sure how, but we should try. Maybe next weekend is too soon, but let's look at the next possible date. You talk to your boss, see if you can get some time off. She nodded, forcing a thin smile. Yes, let's do that. A flicker of relief crossed his face, and he tentatively moved closer, as if he wanted to wrap an arm around her. She allowed it, letting her head rest lightly on his shoulder. The gesture felt both comforting and painfully distant, because she couldn't silence the voice in her head. If he only knew. Time passed with the quiet sounds of Daniel and Emily giggling over their game. Stephen's warmth at her side should have felt reassuring. But she heard the near-silent buzz from her phone in her pocket, likely an email or text. Her pulse quickened, fear glancing through her. What if it's Jonathan? Suddenly, her phone vibrated again, more insistent. She pulled away from Stephen carefully and checked the screen. A text from Diana glowed in the dark. Hey, are you free tomorrow? There's something I need to talk to you about. Unease fluttered in her chest. The casual wording couldn't hide the hint of urgency. Had Diana sensed something was off? She stared at the message a beat longer than necessary, mind already bracing for more questions she wasn't ready to answer. Everything okay? Stephen asked quietly, noticing her stiff posture. Olivia nodded, tucking her phone away. Just Diana, she replied, managing a small smile. She wants to meet up. He paused before reaching for the TV remote. Maybe you should. Could be good to talk to a friend. She simply nodded again, leaning back, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Because somewhere in the swirl of her life, her job, her marriage, and Jonathan's reappearance, Diana might end up being the confidant she both needed and feared. And all Olivia could do was hope that the mounting tension in her world wouldn't unravel everything she loved before she figured out what to do. Sang O Kong Tai. Olivia tries to avoid Jonathan, but he corners her in the elevator. They end up having an uneasy lunch where Jonathan confronts her about her marriage. Morning sunlight spilled over the corporate high-rise of Randall and Associates, cutting across the glass panes and casting long beams into the bustling lobby. Olivia stepped off the escalator in a fitted gray skirt suit, determined to keep her head down and reach her desk without any unwanted encounters. Her heart still pounded from her restless night. She kept replaying how she'd dodged Stephen's questions about the weekend trip. Inside, polished floors gleamed under fluorescent lights, and a faint aroma of coffee drifted from the lounge area. Colleagues hustled past, chattering about deadlines and client calls. Olivia clutched her leather tote close, hoping she could maintain a low profile this morning. As she hurried toward the elevators, she spotted a few coworkers, none of them Jonathan, thank goodness. "Just get upstairs, Olivia," she told herself. "Focus on your tasks. Don't give him a chance to corner you." But luck, it seemed, wasn't on her side. The moment she pressed the button for the elevator, she heard a voice behind her, deep and unmistakably familiar. "Olivia in a rush?" She spun around, pulse jumping. Jonathan stood there with his hand tucked casually into his suit pocket. The crisp navy fabric complemented his broad shoulders. There was a cool confidence in the way he tilted his head, a faint smirk brushing his lips. "I have a meeting," she said curtly, stepping into the elevator the moment the doors slid open. He followed, letting others pile in behind them. Surrounded by laptops, briefcases, and the morning flurry, Olivia tried to ignore the crackling tension only she and Jonathan could feel. The elevator started its climb with a muted hum. Several people exited on the second floor, and by the third floor, it was just the two of them and one woman tapping away at her phone. Jonathan edged closer, but kept his tone low. "You avoided me yesterday," he said, gaze pinned on Olivia's face. She glanced at the other woman, still engrossed in her texts. "I've been busy," she replied stiffly. "We don't really have anything to discuss." His brow lifted. "We both know that's a lie." The elevator opened again. The remaining passenger stepped out. Now they stood alone in the confined space, thick silence pressing on Olivia's ears. She tried to keep her posture poised, but her grip tightened on her tote. "I have nothing more to say," she insisted as the doors slid shut once more. "Let's keep things professional." A soft, humorless chuckle escaped him. "Professional, sure, until you remember what we were to each other. Or are you set on pretending none of it happened?" Olivia's heart thudded. The memory of old texts, clandestine conversations, that fleeting connection she'd tried so hard to deny it all flared in her mind. She forced a calm demeanor. "It's in the past, Jonathan," she said, voice trembling just enough to give away her unease. "I'm married now." The elevator chimed at their floor. He angled his body so she was forced to squeeze by him. "Doesn't seem like a happy marriage," he murmured as she stepped out. "Otherwise, you wouldn't be so flustered." Heat rushed to her cheeks. She marched forward, ignoring the surprised glance of a coworker in the hallway. Jonathan followed at a short distance. Just before she could slip into her cubicle, he leaned in. "Lunch. Today," he said in a low voice. "We need to talk things out, unless you want me to show up at your desk and make it obvious." A swirl of panic jolted through her. She couldn't risk him causing a scene, especially not with Dennis or Diana nearby. "Fine," she said through gritted teeth, mentally berating herself for giving in. 12:30, at the cafe across the street. 1 hour, no more." He nodded once, satisfied. She sank into her chair, heart hammering as if she'd run a marathon. Work tasks seemed blurred now. Jonathan had cast a shadow over her entire morning. Later that day, 12:30 p.m. A brisk wind swept through the city streets, rustling the leaves of sidewalk planters. The small cafe, with warm lantern-style lights hanging in its window, looked cozy from the outside. Olivia slid into a booth by the window, scanning the lunch menu without actually reading it. Her stomach was tied in knots. Jonathan arrived moments later, sharp in his tailored suit. He eased into the seat across from her. "Thanks for agreeing to this," he said, setting his phone aside. She inhaled, glancing around. The cafe had a gentle buzz baristas calling out orders, the hiss of espresso machines, a handful of professionals typing on laptops. It was a safe place. Public. She felt marginally more comfortable having walls and strangers around them. "This doesn't change anything," she started firmly. "I'm only here because I don't want you causing problems at the office." A slight smile curved his lips. "And what kind of problems would that be?" She ignored his taunt, focusing on the swirl in her coffee cup. "You mentioned we need to talk, so talk." He tilted his head, studying her. "Why are you so tense? I remember a time when you actually smiled at me." "Stop," she whispered, cheeks flushing. "That was before. I'm married now. You know that." His expression turned serious. "Yeah, I know. But you also look miserable at your desk, and I hear things aren't exactly perfect at home. Stephen's never around, is he? She bristled. My marriage is none of your business. Jonathan leaned back, crossing his arms. If you're unhappy, you could always walk away. His tone held a note of challenge. I'd welcome that. Olivia's heart panged with conflicting emotions, part indignation, part longing. She shook her head. This is ridiculous. My issues with Stephen do not involve you, she snapped, voice shaking slightly. Then why did you answer my call the other night? He asked softly. Heat prickled at the nape of her neck. She remembered that midnight moment, her whispered conversation on the balcony, the stir of cold air against her skin. She'd been too rattled to ignore him. It was a mistake, she managed. I won't do it again. Their coffees arrived, momentarily halting the tension. Olivia thanked the server, waiting until he left before speaking again. Look, Jonathan, I don't know why you're back. If it's to stir up old emotions, don't. I'm not leaving Stephen. For a moment, Jonathan said nothing, just stirred sugar into his cup. Finally, he replied, I'm here because Randall and Associates hired me. You know that. But if you're asking whether I'm here to see if we have unfinished business, then yeah, maybe. Her chest tightened. There is no unfinished business, she insisted, though her voice quavered. I don't believe you. He sipped his coffee, eyes never leaving hers. But we'll see. She pushed her cup aside. This was a mistake. Rising, she grabbed her purse. We're done here. Don't corner me again about my personal life. His gaze followed her, unwavering. If you say so, Olivia. But something tells me you'll be the one calling me next. She whirled away, not trusting herself to respond. Outside, the chilly midday air stung her cheeks as she hurried back across the street, heart pounding so fiercely she could practically hear it in her ears. This is insane. I have to shut it down for good. But as she returned to her desk, the lingering flutter of her pulse suggested it wouldn't be so simple. Evening at home. Stephen packs for a business trip. A conflict over their sick child arises, revealing growing distance. Twilight draped the sky in soft lavender and orange as Olivia pulled into the driveway. The windows of her suburban home glowed with warm lamplight, but her nerves still felt raw from lunch with Jonathan. She craved the normalcy of family life, yet feared she'd find only tension with Stephen. Inside, the living room was strewn with half-packed luggage. Stephen was kneeling by a suitcase, folding a dress shirt with mechanical precision. He glanced up, a thin smile on his lips. Hey, you're home. Yeah, she said, slipping off her shoes. You heading out soon? He stood, nodding. Early flight tomorrow to Chicago. I'll be gone 3 days. Her stomach dipped. Another trip, another stretch of time they'd barely talk or see each other. A muffled cough sounded from the hallway. Then Daniel, their 5-year-old, wandered in, cheeks rosy, eyes watery. Mommy, I don't feel good, he mumbled, pressing against Olivia's side. Concern spiked through her. She touched his forehead. You're running a fever, she murmured. Did you take anything? Stephen sighed, setting aside the shirt. I gave him some children's Tylenol, but he hasn't improved much. Olivia felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't even realized Daniel was sick until now. Did you call the pediatrician? I tried, Stephen replied, brow creasing. They said to watch him overnight. Bring him in if it gets worse. I've been busy packing, so I thought maybe you could handle it. She smoothed Daniel's hair. Of course, she said softly, wishing she'd arrived home earlier to take care of him. Daniel clung to her, looking miserable. Olivia guided him back to his bedroom, promising to check his temperature again. After a few minutes, she returned to the living room to find Stephen zipping his suitcase. You're still going? She asked, pulse flaring with irritation. Daniel's sick. He shrugged, attempting to remain calm. Liv, it's an important trip. I can't cancel last minute. I'll call every night to check in. Her temper flickered, partly fueled by her own stress, partly by the sense that Stephen was forever choosing work over family. Stephen, he needs us right now. Couldn't you at least see if someone else can go in your place? His jaw tightened. I told you this meeting is vital. My boss expects me there in person, and you're here, Daniel will be fine with you, right? She let out a frustrated sigh. Sure, let's just keep doing what we always do. You leave, I stay and juggle everything else. He threw up his hands. Don't turn this into a fight. I'm doing this for our family, too. We have bills, a mortgage. Yeah, I know. She cut in, more sharply than intended. Just you're gone so often. It's hard. And Daniel? Stephen picked up his suitcase, frustration etched across his face. Look, I'll be back in 3 days. It's not that long. Can we not argue tonight, please? Olivia bit back her retort, feeling her heart pound with tension. Fine, she muttered. She turned away, heading to the kitchen to check on dinner. Moments later, her phone buzzed. She glanced down, pulse jumping. Was it Jonathan again? But no, the screen read Faith. She took the call quietly, stepping aside. Faith, hey. Olivia, sweetie, I was just calling to see how you're doing. Faith's warm voice said. You sound stressed. I am. Daniel's got a fever and Stephen's traveling early tomorrow. It's just a lot. I get it. Take a deep breath. Do you want me to stop by? I can bring soup or something for Daniel. Olivia hesitated, pressing a hand to her temple. She appreciated Faith's kindness, but also felt oddly self-conscious about letting anyone see the cracks forming in her marriage. It's okay, she said. Really, I'll manage. Thanks, though. A pause crackled on the line. Sure, but Olivia, if there's something bigger going on, you know you can talk to me. She swallowed, thinking of Jonathan's reappearance, her spiraling doubts. I know, she said quietly. I'm fine. After they hung up, Olivia returned to the living room, where Stephen was still organizing travel documents. They exchanged a few strained words about Daniel's medication schedule. The undercurrent of conflict bristled in the air, like static before a storm. Late that night, after Daniel finally drifted off in her arms, Olivia went to the master bedroom. Stephen lay in bed, scrolling on his phone, likely checking flight details or emails. A familiar ache tugged at her. This was the man she'd chosen, the father of her children, and yet she felt 1,000,000 miles away from him. As she changed into her pajamas, he set down his phone. Is Daniel okay? She nodded. He's sleeping now. I'll keep an eye on him. Stephen sighed, gaze flickering with fatigue. I'm sorry this is happening right before I leave. Really? She managed a small shrug. It's fine, she said, voice hollow. You do what you have to do. Silence stretched. Neither spoke of planning the family trip Stephen had mentioned. Neither acknowledged the tension that crackled between them. Olivia crawled into bed, pulling the comforter up. In the darkness, the hum of the central heating filled the void where their conversation should have been. Her phone sat on the nightstand. Face down, she refused to check it. The echo of Jonathan's taunting words at lunch still haunted her. You'll be the one calling me next. She squeezed her eyes shut. She wouldn't call him. She wouldn't let him or anyone else tear her marriage apart. But as Stephen's breathing slowed into shallow sleep, she felt a deep, gnawing realization that her marriage had already been hollowed out by neglect, distance, and secrets, a company event at a resort, hotel, out of town. Jonathan and Olivia find themselves on the same floor, leading to their first private, intimate moment, though mostly subtle and suggestive. 2 days later, Olivia found herself stepping off a shuttle bus onto the driveway of a sleek lakeside resort. The late afternoon sky was a canvas of deep blues and gold, shimmering on the water's surface. The Carlson project team had booked this place for a corporate retreat and brainstorming session, a chance for key staff to align on strategy. She lugged her overnight bag through the grand lobby, trying not to think about Stephen's text messages, updating her on his Chicago trip or Daniel's improved health. She was relieved Daniel's fever had subsided, yet uneasy that her own life felt more complicated than ever. Dennis, their team lead, waved from the front desk. Olivia, I checked you in. Here's your room key. He handed her a small envelope. We'll have dinner at 6 in the harbor room downstairs. She forced a polite smile. Great, thanks. As she turned to find the elevators, her heart tensed at the sight of Jonathan strolling past the lobby's modern lounge chairs, suit jacket slung casually over one shoulder. The overhead lights glinted off his dark hair. He caught her eye, and something unreadable flickered in his expression, equal parts curiosity and determination. She tried to slip into the elevator alone, but he glided in right behind her, letting the doors close. "What floor?" he asked. "Fifth," she muttered, sliding her keycard between tense fingers. He tapped the same number on the panel 5. "Looks like we're neighbors," he remarked, voice low. Olivia's pulse quickened. "Of course," she mumbled, staring at the digital floor numbers ticking upward. On the 5th floor, plush carpet muted their footsteps. She spotted her room number, 518. Sliding the keycard, she stepped inside. The space was tasteful, a king bed, a large window overlooking the lake, a small desk. She dropped her bag, inhaling the faint scent of lavender from the room freshener. Barely a minute passed before a light knock sounded. She froze, pulse thudding. Please be housekeeping. But deep down, she knew. Steeling herself, she opened the door. Jonathan stood in the hallway, his jacket now folded over his arm. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice smooth and quiet. "We need to talk before dinner." She hesitated, peering up and down the corridor to ensure no one else was around. "This is inappropriate," she whispered, acutely aware of the risk. Jonathan's gaze flicked over her, and she felt a surge of warmth under his scrutiny. "Just a conversation," he said. "I promise." Unable to fully articulate why she even considered letting him in, she stepped aside. As soon as the door shut, she regretted it. The walls felt too close, the quiet too loaded. Jonathan placed his jacket on the armchair, taking in the room. "Nice view, huh?" He nodded toward the wide window reflecting the lake's afternoon shimmer. She stood near the foot of the bed, arms crossed. "You said you wanted to talk, so talk." He inched closer, voice soft. "Why do you insist on treating me like the enemy?" Her defenses rose. "Because you keep pushing. I told you I'm trying to work things out with Stephen." Jonathan's eyes flickered. "But are you? Or are you stalling? You looked miserable the other day, and he's never around from what I hear." "You don't know anything about my life," she retorted, though her conviction wavered. He reached for her hand. She drew back on instinct, heart hammering. "Jonathan!" Her words died as he gently touched her arm, heat coursing through her. The last time they stood this close, it had been under different circumstances, ones she'd suppressed for months. "Why are you so afraid to admit what's happening?" he asked. "You're lonely, Liv. I see it in your eyes." Anger and longing collided inside her. She tried to push him away, but he didn't move far. Their faces hovered inches apart, tension electric. In a rush of confusion, she found herself leaning forward, almost craving the closeness she'd been denied at home. He seized that unspoken invitation, pressing his lips to hers in a swift, heated moment. Her mind screamed protests. "This is wrong. You're betraying Stephen." Yet her body betrayed her, responding to the warmth of his mouth. For a few seconds, the world dissolved. Then reality roared back. She ripped away, panting, heart in a frenzy. "No," she whispered, voice trembling. "This can't happen." Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. A moment later, a knock rattled the door. "Housekeeping!" a muffled voice called. Panic shot through Olivia. She motioned for Jonathan to be silent, her mind racing with terror at the thought of being found with him in her room. Carefully, she cracked the door, assuring the staffer she didn't need anything. When she turned around, Jonathan stood inches away, his gaze burning into hers. "Relax," he said, quieter now. "We won't get caught if you don't want us to." Her chest heaved. She stepped back, fighting the swirl of yearning and guilt. "You have to go," she said, her voice shaky. "I'm serious." Reluctantly, he nodded, grabbing his jacket from the chair. At the door, he paused. "I won't pretend there isn't something here, Olivia. But I'll respect your wishes for now." Then he was gone, leaving her trembling in the silence of the room. She pressed a hand to her lips, remembering that brief, dangerous kiss. What am I doing? Her stomach twisted, shame and a raw thrill clashing in her chest. Back at the office after the resort event, Diana grows suspicious. Stephen's phone calls reveal he senses Olivia pulling away. Pressure mounts from all sides. The next morning, Olivia returned to the office, her thoughts chaotic. The resort event ended with her avoiding Jonathan all evening, ducking out of group gatherings sooner than anyone noticed. If he was frustrated, he didn't show it. but she still felt his stare from across the dining hall whenever the team convened. Now, sitting at her desk, she tried to bury herself in emails and project documents. The usual office chatter keyboards clicking, phones ringing felt both comforting and suffocating. She sensed a presence behind her. Spinning around, she found Diana standing there, arms folded. "Hey," Diana said, arching an eyebrow. "You got a minute?" Olivia forced a polite nod. "Sure. Need to discuss something about the Carlson project?" Diana took a seat on the edge of the desk. "Project aside, I wanted to ask you something." She paused, eyes probing. "At the resort yesterday, I saw you and Jonathan in the hallway. You both looked tense." Olivia's pulse kicked up. "We were just talking about some action items," she lied, but her voice trembled a bit. Diana frowned. "Are you sure? Because the way he looked at you, I don't know, Liv. It felt personal." Heat rose in Olivia's face. She tried to laugh it off. "He's a pushy consultant. You know how it is. I'm just stressed." Silence stretched thick with Diana's disbelief. Finally, Diana exhaled. "I'm your friend. If something's going on, you can tell me. I promise I won't judge. But if it's something you'll regret, maybe it's time to set boundaries." The words sliced through Olivia's defenses. She bristled. "There's nothing to talk about." Diana studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right," she said, clearly unconvinced. "I'm here if you need me." She slipped away, leaving Olivia shaken by how perceptive her friend was. How long until everyone else starts suspecting something? Later that afternoon, Olivia's phone vibrated with a familiar ringtone. Stephen. She checked the time he must be between client meetings. Hesitating, she finally answered. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey, Liv." Stephen's voice came through, edged with weariness. "I just landed back home. Wanted to let you know I'll be working remote from here for the rest of the day." "Oh," she replied, glancing at the clock on her computer screen. "Welcome back. Is Daniel okay?" "Yeah, he's fine," Stephen said, sighing. "Your mom picked him up from preschool. Listen, we should talk tonight. You've been distant lately, and I'm worried." Her throat constricted. "Yeah, sure. We'll talk." He paused, as though weighing his words. "You were at that resort for the company thing, right? Everything go okay?" Her heart stuttered. It was fine. Just lots of team bonding and meetings. Nothing special. "Okay. I'll see you at home." The line clicked off. She set down her phone, nerves raw. Stephen was no fool. He sensed her pulling away. On the other hand, Diana's suspicion was intensifying, and Jonathan was a constant pressure at work. "I can't keep juggling this," she thought, rubbing her temples. "Something's going to break." But what scared her most was the realization that part of her, buried beneath layers of guilt, was still undeniably drawn to Jonathan's attention. It felt like a spark in the midst of a dying fire, a spark that could burn her life to ashes if she wasn't careful. A conference in another city. Stephen can't attend, leaving Olivia and Jonathan with an unexpected opportunity to be alone. Their relationship crosses a critical line, handled subtly. Late afternoon sunlight slanted through the glass atrium of the downtown conference center, painting long golden stripes across the marble floor. Olivia stepped out of the taxi and immediately felt the buzz of the city. High-rise buildings soared overhead and crowds bustled on sidewalks. She clutched her rolling suitcase, heart pounding with equal parts anticipation and dread. This was the Innovation Strategies Symposium, a 3-day affair that Randall and Associates deemed essential for top employees. Dennis had insisted Olivia attend to gather insights for the Carlson project, and Jonathan, as consultant, would represent a strategic perspective. Stephen, caught up in urgent matters at home, gave his reluctant blessing for her to go alone. Inside the conference center lobby, rows of booths displayed business software demos. Large banners proclaimed technology for tomorrow. Olivia adjusted her blazer, scanning for any familiar faces. She spotted Dennis near the registration table, but her eyes kept flicking around, anticipating Jonathan's presence. Sure enough, he appeared moments later, weaving confidently through the crowd. In an impeccably tailored charcoal suit, he gave her a slight nod, acknowledging both their professional roles and the unspoken tension between them. She tried to maintain composure, reminding herself, I'm here for work. Stick to that. For most of the day, she managed. Workshops, presentations, and panel discussions kept them busy. They exchanged only necessary remarks. Jonathan occasionally dropped a pointed comment or an amused glance her way, but she feigned detachment. Still, she couldn't stop the flutter in her chest whenever he spoke. By evening, Dennis announced he'd booked separate hotel rooms for the group in a sleek tower overlooking the conference center. Olivia's phone buzzed with multiple missed calls from Stephen, but she had no chance to step away. Her phone battery was perilously low, and the day's schedule was relentless. Her guilt swelled, but she kept telling herself, "I'll call him as soon as I can." Later, that night, hotel lounge. A welcome reception took place in the rooftop bar, all glass walls and modern decor. City lights glimmered below like scattered stars, and soft jazz played in the background. Olivia perched on a bar stool, sipping sparkling water, tension coiled inside her. Dennis and two other co-workers chatted about upcoming deadlines. Jonathan lingered nearby, his gaze often drifting toward her. She tried to ignore it, uncertain how long her resolve would hold. As the evening wore on, Dennis and the others departed in small groups, leaving Olivia alone at the bar. She fumbled for her phone, completely dead. Before she could borrow a charger, Jonathan slid into the seat beside her. "You look exhausted," he said, voice low. "I'm heading up soon. Thought I'd see if you needed anything." His tone was innocuous, yet the subtle current between them was anything but. She swallowed hard. I should probably head upstairs too," she murmured, setting down her glass. The tension in her shoulders reminded her how every muscle was taut with worry. About Stephen, about Jonathan, about everything. They left the lounge together. The elevator ride up felt suffocatingly close, people piled in, and she was forced near Jonathan's side. Her mind buzzed with conflicting urges, to run away, to confront him, to hold firm in her marriage vows. But the static of attraction was undeniable. On the 12th floor, they discovered their rooms were just across the hall from each other. They paused in the hushed corridor, plush carpet absorbing every footstep. A faint hum of distant city traffic hummed through sealed windows. "I need to charge my phone," Olivia said, half to herself. She rummaged in her purse but realized her charger was broken. "Of course." Jonathan held up his own device. "I've got a universal charger in my room. You can borrow it." She hesitated, being alone with him again, but she was desperate to call Stephen. "Fine," she whispered. "Just a minute, though." He unlocked his door and she stepped into a suite nearly identical to hers sleek furniture, a large bed with crisp linens, a corner window showcasing a panorama of glimmering skyscrapers. Her pulse hammered. "Stay calm. It's just a charger." Jonathan plugged the cable into the wall, handed her the cord. "There," he said quietly. "Should power up soon." She connected her phone, waiting for the screen to flicker to life. As the minutes dragged, an uneasy silence lingered. Jonathan slipped off his suit jacket, draping it over a chair. Olivia caught a faint whiff of his cologne, cool, spicy. Everything felt heightened. "You've been avoiding me," he said softly, stepping closer. His voice carried the familiarity of someone who'd once been far too close to her secrets. She pressed her back against the desk, phone in hand, the lock screen still at 0% battery. "Because we have nothing more to say." She forced the words, though her heart hammered. Jonathan's gaze roamed her face. "Are you sure?" His question hung in the charged air. Confusion and attraction warred in her mind. She remembered Stephen, likely worried at home, and she pictured Daniel's bright smile. Yet as Jonathan inched closer, the memory of their last stolen moments overcame her. She couldn't tear her eyes away. "Jonathan," she began, voice trembling. Before she could finish, he leaned in, capturing her lips in a gentle but unyielding kiss. All rational thought dissolved. A storm of guilt and longing consumed her. They broke apart, both breathing unevenly. She knew in that moment she should flee back to her own room. But her arms slid around his shoulders, and the intensity of the next kiss shattered whatever defenses remained. The dim glow of a single lamp revealed disheveled sheets. Olivia lay there, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding as reality came crashing down. She had just betrayed Stephen in the most irreversible way. Beside her, Jonathan brushed a hand over her hair, the intimacy of the gesture twisting her guilt even tighter. She pulled away, wrapping herself in the blanket. Her phone, finally charged, blinked with missed calls and messages likely from Stephen or maybe even Diana. Her stomach churned. "This was a mistake," she whispered, voice ragged. Jonathan exhaled, didn't argue. Perhaps he sensed the depth of her turmoil. She fumbled for her phone, reading Stephen's frantic messages. "Call me ASAP." "Is everything okay?" She pressed a hand over her mouth, tears burning the corners of her eyes. What have I done? The clock on the nightstand read nearly midnight. She shot upright, gathering clothes, refusing to meet Jonathan's eyes. I have to go," she mumbled, hands shaking as she dressed. Please don't follow me." He sat up, regret lacing his features. "Olivia!" She shook her head, forcing the words out. "We can't! This can't ever happen again!" Then she slipped out the door, her pulse roaring in her ears. Back in her own room, she locked the door, flipped on the lights. She dialed Stephen's number, praying he'd pick up. But it went straight to voicemail, his third missed call. The guilt was suffocating. Her voice quivered as she left a message. "Stephen, I'm sorry I had a long day. I'm safe. Call me when you can." She hung up, tears pooling. She sank onto the bed, mind spinning. The swirl of emotions, shame, regret, and a haunting thrill threatened to consume her. I can't let Stephen find out. I can't destroy my family. But she sensed with chilling certainty that her actions had already set disaster in motion. Olivia returns home after the conference, trying to appear normal. Someone, Diana or Dennis, intercepts incriminating text messages from Jonathan. The threat of exposure looms large. The crisp morning air greeted Olivia as she stepped off the airport shuttle outside her house. She tugged her coat closer, a swirl of autumn leaves skittering along the curb. Her luggage felt heavier than usual, as though weighed down by guilt. She dreaded walking through the front door, facing Stephen's concerned eyes. Inside, the warmth of the living room wrapped around her, and she spotted Stephen on the sofa, phone in hand. He jumped up, relief washing over his features. "Liv, finally. I tried calling you last night. I was worried." She forced a smile, letting him take her suitcase. "Sorry, my phone died and the schedule was crazy. I left you a voicemail, didn't I?" He exhaled, raking a hand through his hair. "You did, but it was so late. I wasn't sure if you were okay." Her heart twisted. She leaned forward to hug him, hoping he wouldn't sense her guilt radiating through her tense arms. "Everything's fine," she lied. "Just exhausted." He stepped back, studying her face as though searching for cracks. "I'm glad you're safe." He hesitated, then pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "Get some rest. I'll help you unpack later." She murmured thanks, shoulders sagging with relief that he hadn't bombarded her with questions. But how long before he notices something's off? She escaped to the bedroom, where familiar walls and the faint scent of their laundry gave her a jarring reminder of her betrayal. She could almost see her reflection in the mirror, eyes bloodshot, expression haunted. Her return to Randall and Associates after the conference was anything but calm. Deadlines loomed, emails piled up, and she carried an emotional weight that threatened to crush her. She couldn't avoid Jonathan for long. He was part of the Carlson project. However, she'd decided on the flight back that she'd draw a firm boundary. No more stolen moments, no more illusions. Arriving at her cubicle, she noticed an envelope on her chair. Inside was a single printed screenshot of text messages, hers and Jonathan's. Heart pounding, she read lines like, "Meet me tonight," and references to their clandestine meeting. Her breath caught. Who printed this? A sticky note attached read, "You're risking everything. Stop before it's too late." She swallowed hard, scanning the office area. Co-workers tapped at keyboards, answered phones. No one made eye contact. She crumpled the note, stuffing it into her purse. Her adrenaline spiked. Who knows? Could it be Dennis, Diana, or someone else entirely? Just then, Diana walked by, offering a quick wave. Olivia froze, but Diana's expression showed no immediate accusation, only concern. Maybe Diana wasn't behind it after all, but someone here had evidence of her affair. She hurried to the restroom, anxiety twisting her stomach. Locking herself in a stall, she reread the screenshot. It was from a text exchange last week, referencing the conference. The messages were subtle but undeniably intimate. If Stephen ever saw them, her phone buzzed. Jonathan. A pang of dread shot through her. She let it ring out, unwilling to speak to him yet. Instead, she texted back, "Don't contact me. Someone found our messages. This has to stop." A moment later, his reply arrived. "What do you mean someone found them? Who?" She didn't respond, heart thrashing like a caged bird. "I'm trapped," she thought, burying her face in her hands. Stephen hovered by the kitchen counter, rummaging for ingredients to prep a simple meal. Olivia stood at the sink, gazing out the window at the autumn twilight. She felt Stephen's eyes on her. "You're quiet," he said softly. "Something happened at the conference?" She nearly dropped the fork she was scrubbing. "Just a stressful project. Nothing major." Her voice shook with denial. He came closer, brushing a stray hair from her temple. "Liv, if there's anything—" She turned, forcing a trembling smile. "I promise I'm okay." She hated lying to him, but panic clutched her. The threat of those screenshots overshadowed everything. One leak, and Stephen would see the truth. They ate dinner in near silence, the clink of cutlery echoing in the room. Olivia's phone vibrated with a text notification. Stephen glanced at it curiously. She flipped the phone face down. "Work stuff," she mumbled, pulse spiking. If it was more threats, she couldn't let him see. He let it go, but a flicker of hurt crossed his face, as though he sensed her growing distance yet didn't know why. The moment dinner ended, she excused herself, fleeing to the bedroom, leaving Stephen alone at the table, questions hanging unasked. Behind closed doors, Olivia read the text. "I can't lose you. Let's figure this out. Jonathan." Her chest tightened with tangled emotions, fear, anger, longing. But overshadowing it all was the knowledge that someone in her orbit could expose her secret at any time. Stephen's suspicions intensify. He discreetly questions Diana, Faith, and possibly Dennis. Jonathan pushes Olivia to choose him. Olivia feels cornered and contemplates ending everything. The next morning dawned gray and overcast, matching Olivia's bleak mood. She half listened to the news radio on her commute, mind stuck on the looming threat of discovery. The screenshot note replayed in her head, a silent alarm. At the office, she found Stephen waiting outside her building. Surprise mingled with dread. "What are you doing here?" she asked, stepping onto the sidewalk. The crisp breeze tugged at her coat. He shrugged, attempting a casual smile. "Thought I'd grab coffee with my wife before heading to my own meeting across town." His tone sounded forced, as if trying to mask deeper concerns. "We haven't spent much time together lately." Her stomach twisted. He's suspicious. But she forced a nod. "Sure, let's go." They settled in a nearby cafe, small and cozy, with chalkboard menus and an aroma of freshly baked pastries. Stephen placed their orders, then faced her across a tiny table. "You seem anxious," he said gently. "Is everything at work okay?" She fiddled with her napkin, heart racing. "Just a lot on my plate. The Carlson project is intense." She avoided his gaze, afraid he'd read the truth in her eyes. He sighed. "I talked to Faith yesterday. She said you haven't been calling her back, and Diana seemed worried too. They both think something's off." Her pulse throbbed, so Stephen had been quietly gathering intel from their circle. I'm sorry. I've been swamped," she said, voice tight. "I'll call them." Stephen's eyes flicked over her face, searching. Before he could press further, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expression shifting. "I need to get going." He stood, leaning in to kiss her cheek. "Liv, whatever it is, please remember you can tell me." A wave of guilt crashed over her. She held his gaze for a moment, then dropped her eyes. "I know," she murmured. But honesty felt impossible now. Olivia typed emails with shaky hands when Diana appeared, gripping a file. "Here," Diana said. "Thought you might need the updated brief." Olivia accepted it, eyes flicking to her friend's worried face. They both hesitated. Then Diana blurted, "Stephen asked me if you're okay." "I told him I wasn't sure." Olivia's heart clenched. Why can't everyone just trust me to handle my own issues? Diana placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Because we care. Look, if you're in trouble, Or if Jonathan's pushing you into something, you can be honest. We can figure it out together. Tears stung Olivia's eyes. She glanced away, voice tight. I can handle Jonathan. It's not what you think. She couldn't bear to see Diana's concerned expression. A tense silence, then Diana sighed. Well, if you need me, I'm here, she said quietly, retreating down the aisle of cubicles. Moments later, Jonathan walked by. He halted, scanning Olivia's tense posture. We need to talk, he murmured, stepping closer. Privately. Now! She shot up from her chair, leading him into an unused break room. Industrial lighting buzzed overhead as she whirled on him. I told you, she hissed. We have to stop. Someone found our messages. His jaw tightened. I know, you texted me, but I don't want to let you go. Why can't we figure out a way to be together? She clenched her fists, frustration blazing. Because I have a husband, Jonathan, and children, and a life I don't want to destroy. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. You're unhappy, though. Isn't that why this started? Her anger flared, tears threatening. Even if I'm unhappy, I made vows, and I won't throw everything away for a mistake. The word stabbed at her own heart, but she didn't retract it. Jonathan's face reflected pain. You call it a mistake? She nodded fiercely, ignoring the knot of conflicting emotions. Yes, we crossed a line. Silence fell, only the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Finally, he whispered, if that's really what you want, I'll back off. But I won't lie and say I'm okay with it. She turned away, forcing down tears. Just leave me alone. Twilight glowed through the windows as she entered. Stephen's car was in the driveway, indicating he was already inside. Her stomach twisted. She braced herself, unlocking the door. She found him in the den, sifting through a small box of files. Papers from his own projects, presumably. He glanced up, lips pressed in a grim line. Hey, he said, measured. Busy day? Yeah, she replied softly, removing her coat. Yours? He paused, studying her. Actually, I spoke to Dennis. Just wanted to see how your workload was. He mentioned the Carlson project was tough and that Jonathan's been integral. Her heart jolted. Does he suspect? Well, yes, Jonathan's on the team. Why? She asked, forcing a casual tone. Stephen set aside a file, gaze steady. I was curious who you spend so much time with at work. You never talk about your co-workers anymore. A chill skittered down her spine. We're all busy, she repeated, forging an even voice. He nodded slowly, then sighed. Liv, I can't shake the feeling you're hiding something. She opened her mouth to deny it just as her phone pinged in her purse. She tensed, certain it might be Jonathan or another cryptic warning. Stephen noticed, of course. She scrambled to retrieve the phone, flipping it open. Relief surged. It was just a work reminder. Stephen's gaze, however, was loaded with suspicion, the tension between them thickening like a thundercloud about to burst. I'm going to shower, she managed, hurrying away before he could ask more. The walls seemed to close in. She realized, with a sinking heart, that Stephen was inching ever closer to the truth, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could keep it all from shattering. A large company event or anniversary party that Stephen also attends. Jonathan's possessive behavior triggers a public confrontation. Stephen receives proof of the affair, photo or message. A week later, Randall and Associates hosted its annual awards gala, an evening of formal attire and congratulatory speeches. The venue was an upscale ballroom downtown, awash in glittering chandeliers and plush red carpets. Outside, drizzle tapped the windows, but inside, champagne flowed amid lively conversation. Olivia smoothed the skirt of her dark blue cocktail dress, heart pounding. Stephen stood beside her in a sharp black suit, a protective hand on her lower back. She attempted a smile, but her nerves crackled, heightened by the knowledge that Jonathan was here somewhere. She'd spent the past days pointedly avoiding him, yet the undercurrents remained. They mingled with co-workers, forcing polite banter. Diana shot Olivia a worried glance from across the room as if expecting something to go wrong. Dennis gave them a cordial nod, raising a glass. Over near the bar, Olivia spotted Jonathan, stiff posture betraying frustration. Their eyes met for a flicker. She averted her gaze. The evening dragged on with toasts and announcements. Finally, the CEO invited everyone to the dance floor. A slow tune began playing. Stephen turned to Olivia. "Dance with me?" She bit her lip, hating how her pulse spiked. "Sure," she said quietly. They drifted onto the marble floor, joining other couples. Stephen's hand rested gently on her waist, guiding her in a soft sway. The melody wrapped around them like a nostalgic echo of simpler times. She almost let herself sink into the moment, remembering a day when their biggest worry was paying off student loans. Then, through the gentle swirl of dancers, Jonathan appeared, edging closer. Olivia's chest tightened. "Go away, please." But he approached, eyes flicking over Stephen with something akin to resentment. A lull in the music gave Jonathan an opening. He cleared his throat. "May I cut in?" he asked, voice too calm. Stephen frowned. "Do I know you?" Olivia's throat constricted. "Stephen, this is Jonathan. He's on my Carlson project team." She forced neutrality into her tone. Maybe we should just keep dancing." Jonathan ignored her subtle plea, stepping closer. "I'd like a moment with Olivia, if that's okay." Stephen's jaw tightened. Tension rolled off him in waves. "I don't think that's appropriate. We're in the middle of a dance." Nearby pairs began noticing the confrontation. Subtle glances cast their way. Olivia's heart pounded in her ears. "Let's not cause a scene," she whispered, attempting a smile for onlookers. Jonathan's expression darkened. "Well, if you won't let me talk to her," he said quietly, "maybe I'll find another way to make my point." Stephen stepped forward, voice low. "What exactly is your point?" Before Jonathan could respond, the band struck up a new tune, drowning their words. Diana, seeing the escalating tension, hurried over. "Is everything all right?" she asked, scanning Olivia's face. Olivia swallowed. "We're fine," she lied, but her voice quavered. She tugged Stephen's arm. "Let's get some air." They managed to slip off the dance floor, heading toward a dimly lit corner near the coat check. Olivia's nerves rattled. Terrified Jonathan would follow, but Stephen's expression was stormy. "What was that about?" She opened her mouth, searching for an excuse, when a sharp beep emanated from Stephen's phone. He glanced down, then his face went pale. "What is this?" he breathed, turning the screen toward her. Olivia's heart froze. An image of her and Jonathan in a faintly lit hallway, faces close, lips nearly touching. The timestamp showed the night of the conference. Another text followed, presumably from an unknown number. "Ask your wife about him." She swayed, feeling the ground vanish beneath her. Stephen's eyes blazed with betrayal, confusion, and heartbreak. "Olivia, what is this?" he demanded, voice cracking. She couldn't speak, tears forming as she recognized this was the end of her carefully maintained facade. "They have a picture, we're finished." Suddenly, Jonathan emerged, as if drawn by the commotion. "Stephen," he began, but Stephen whirled, fists clenched. "Stay away from us." Guests nearby halted their conversations, heads turning. A hush spread in that pocket of the ballroom, tension thick as fog. Olivia felt paralyzed, unable to do anything but watch Stephen's devastation. He grabbed her arm, voice trembling. "We're leaving. Now." The air crackled with shock and pity from onlookers. Jonathan stood there, breathing heavily, but made no move to stop them. He too seemed aware that a line had been crossed beyond repair. Olivia let Stephen pull her through the stunned crowd, tears sliding down her cheeks. This was it, her entire life unraveling, the whispered rumors, the faint gasps from co-workers. She caught Diana's horrified gaze one last time, feeling shame swirl like a dark vortex. In the swirl of echoing music, hushed chatter, and 1,000 stares, she understood, my secret's out. Everything is about to change. Immediately after the company event, Stephen and Olivia return home. He confronts her with the incriminating proof. Jonathan attempts to sway Olivia. She faces the devastating reality that she might lose everything. A crisp, moonlit sky gleamed above the silent suburban street as Stephen's car pulled up in front of the house. Olivia could barely breathe, her pulse still pounding after the explosive showdown at the gala. The proof, the damning photo or text Stephen had received, felt like a permanent stain on everything she once cherished. The driveway gravel crunched underfoot as they exited the car. Stephen marched ahead, shoulders rigid, unlocking the front door with rapid, almost violent motions. Olivia followed, her heart a storm of panic and guilt. Inside, the living room lay bathed in a soft lamp glow, picture frames reflecting gentle light. Everything appeared deceptively normal, except that nothing would ever be normal again. Stephen spun around, blocking Olivia's path into the room, eyes blazing. "Shut the door!" he commanded, voice cold. Her hands trembled as she did. The click of the latch felt like a prison gate sealing her fate. He thrust his phone toward her, screen alight with that incriminating photo. "Who sent this to me?" he hissed. "Who took it? Or does that even matter? It's obviously you and that—" His words choked off in fury. She swallowed, tears threatening to spill. "Stephen, I'm sorry. Don't," he snapped, jaw clenched. "I want the truth, not excuses." Olivia's breath caught. How could she explain months of secret feelings, poor decisions, fleeting thrills, and crushing guilt? She glanced away, voice raw. It was Jonathan. It just happened. "I never meant—" He cut her off with a bitter laugh. "Never meant for it to go this far? That's a cliché." He paced across the room, hands raking through his hair. "Do you love him? Or was this just physical?" She shuddered. "I don't know," she admitted, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I was lonely, angry. You were never around and I—" He whipped around, eyes brimming with hurt. "So you blame me now?" "No," she whispered, stepping closer. "It's my fault. I'm the one who let it happen." For a moment, they stared at each other in profound anguish. The memories of their early days, smiles, shared dreams, the birth of their children seemed to hang in the air like ghosts. Stephen suddenly hurled his phone onto the couch. "I can't do this. I can't look at you right now." The silence pulsed. Olivia reached out, her voice shaking. "Let's talk this through. Please. I don't want to lose you." "Talk?" he repeated, voice trembling. "What's left to say?" He pointed toward the hallway. "I need space, now. Just go to the guest room or something. I can't even be in the same room." She bit her lip, tears streaming. She wanted to beg him to stay with her, to hold her, to find some shred of forgiveness, but his eyes burned with betrayal. She turned and headed for the guest room, her footsteps echoing on the hardwood. Shutting the door behind her, Olivia collapsed onto the bed, burying her face in the pillow. The house was so quiet she could hear the tick of the clock in the hallway. She felt as if the ground had vanished, leaving her floating in a void of shame. I might lose Stephen, my children, everything. Suddenly her phone buzzed in her clutch. She fumbled it out, pulse spiking at the sight of Jonathan's name. A text read, "Olivia, please, talk to me. Leave him if you have to. We can get through this." Her stomach lurched. She clutched the phone with shaking hands. How dare Jonathan pressure her now when her life was imploding? Part of her wanted to tell him never to contact her again. Another part felt a desperate swirl of guilt and longing. She powered off the phone instead, rolling onto her back, tears soaking into the crisp linens. As the night stretched on, Stephen's footsteps thudded somewhere beyond the door, restless pacing. Eventually, she heard the front door slam. She didn't know if he was leaving for good or just escaping to clear his mind. All she knew was that in a single night, her entire marriage had shattered. In the days following the revelation, Stephen moves out or forces Olivia to leave. She ends up at Diana's or in a short-term rental. Family and friends weigh in. Jonathan urges Olivia to run away with him. She realizes he's not the refuge she imagined. Morning light filtered in through the guest room blinds, revealing tear-stained pillows and Olivia's exhausted face. She sat up, throat parched, recalling last night's heated confrontation with fresh pain. He's gone. She didn't recall hearing Stephen return after storming out. Fear gnawed her heart. Is he coming back? Has he told the kids? A wave of nausea rolled over her. She hurried out to find the house empty, except for the children who were still asleep upstairs. She felt a surge of relief. Stephen must have dropped them off or returned briefly in the dawn. Her phone, switched on again, showed no new calls from him. Instead, a message from Diana popped up. "I heard what happened at the party. Are you okay? Call me." Trembling, Olivia dialed Diana's number. She kept her voice low, not wanting to wake the kids. "Olivia!" Diana's concerned voice filled the line. "Oh my God, how are you holding up?" Tears returned. "He knows everything, Diana," she whispered, voice raw. "He left. I don't even know where." Diana inhaled sharply. "Listen, pack a bag and come stay with me if you need to. Don't be alone." Grateful, Olivia glanced at the stairs. "What about the kids?" Diana paused. "We'll figure that out. They should stay in their routine, right? Maybe Stephen took them to his parents? Let me check on that." Confusion and panic warred within Olivia. He took the children? He wants them out of the house? She dreaded the conversation with them, dreaded seeing disappointment or confusion in their eyes. Mommy hurt Daddy. How do you even explain that? An hour later, Diana arrived, her expression a mix of sympathy and apprehension. Indeed, Stephen had dropped the children at his parents' place for a few days, explaining that he and Olivia needed time to sort things out. Olivia slumped in relief that at least her children were cared for, but the heartbreak of not seeing them stung. With Diana's help, she packed essentials and left a note in case Stephen returned. She still didn't know if he'd moved out permanently or would show up in fury. Diana's compact living room offered a neutral, safe space like gray walls, a comfy sectional scattered magazines. Olivia sat clutching a mug of lukewarm tea, barely tasting it. Her phone lay on the coffee table, buzzing occasionally with texts from Jonathan, which she refused to answer. "Olivia," Diana said gently, taking a seat across from her. "What do you want to do? I mean, do you want to try to save your marriage?" Olivia's eyes burned with tears. "I love Stephen," she choked. "I messed up, and I don't know if he'll ever forgive me, but I can't lose him." Diana gave a slow nod. "Then you have to show him you're serious about ending things with Jonathan. Completely." Olivia's phone buzzed again Jonathan's name. She stared at the glowing screen. He's not letting go, she thought with a mixture of dread and sorrow. She declined the call. "He wants me to run away with him or something," she mumbled, feeling a twisted sense of irony. "He claims we can start new." Diana's brow furrowed. "That's not realistic, and deep down you know it. The only way through this is to face Stephen, own up to everything, and figure out if he can even consider reconciliation." A tear slipped down Olivia's cheek. "I'm terrified he'll file for divorce right away. He might never want to speak to me again." Diana put a comforting hand on her knee. "Take it one step at a time. Give him space, but let him know you're ready to talk whenever he's willing." Olivia inhaled shakily, nodding. One step at a time. Faith, another family friend, dropped by Diana's apartment, bringing a casserole dish and soft questions. "How are you holding up, hun?" she asked, enveloping Olivia in a gentle hug. Olivia, eyes rimmed red, gave a shaky sigh. "I can't sleep, can't eat. I don't know what to do next." Faith exchanged glances with Diana. "Stephen's at his parents'," she explained. "They're worried sick. They said he's not talking much, just angry, hurt. But he hasn't mentioned lawyers yet." A spark of hope ignited in Olivia's chest. "So maybe he's considering giving me a chance to explain." Faith sighed. "Possibly. But he's deeply wounded. And your kids keep asking why they're at Grandma and Grandpa's." Olivia's guilt squeezed her heart. "I'll call them tomorrow. I can't face them yet." She felt monstrous, imagining their innocent voices, questions about where Daddy and Mommy were. Diana guided Olivia toward the sofa. "Try to get some rest. We'll handle things day by day." But rest felt impossible. Olivia spent the night in restless anguish, haunted by memories of Stephen's rage, Jonathan's pleas, and her children's smiles. She realized that Jonathan wasn't the refuge she once imagined. His push for her to abandon everything only amplified her fear. "I have to fix this mess if it's even fixable." Stephen contemplates divorce and may consult a lawyer. Olivia tries to apologize and beg forgiveness. Jonathan escalates, wanting public recognition. A tense standoff or argument between Stephen and Jonathan is possible. Sunlight streamed through Diana's lace curtains the next morning, making the apartment feel deceptively tranquil. Olivia opened her eyes to a new day of turmoil. She flicked on her phone to see a text from Stephen. Her heart leapt, but the message was curt. "We need to figure out a custody arrangement. I'm talking to someone about our legal options. She paled, clutching the phone to her chest. Diana, seated at the small dining table, looked up with concern. Bad news. Olivia's voice trembled. Stephen says he's meeting a lawyer. Diana sighed, crossing over to comfort her. Maybe it's just a consultation. Try not to panic. You should at least attempt to talk to him. Olivia's stomach churned with dread. This is happening. He might actually divorce me. Summoning courage, she typed back, Please, Stephen, can we meet in person? I want to talk. A minute later, his reply flashed, Not yet. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down. Olivia paced the floor, phone in hand. Faith had come by again, suggesting Olivia make a heartfelt apology letter or recorded message. Anything to break the deadlock. Before she could gather the nerve, her phone rang Jonathan. A wave of annoyance and confusion coursed through her, but she answered. What? She said in a hushed, frazzled tone. His voice crackled with urgency. I heard Stephen might go for a divorce. You can't let him bully you, Liv. If you're not happy, we should be together. Anger burst from her. Don't call me Leave anymore, she snapped. This is my marriage, my family. You don't get to push me into anything. Jonathan paused, voice dropping. You told me you were miserable, that I made you feel alive. She pressed her free hand against her forehead, throbbing with pain. I was confused. This isn't some romance novel where we run off happily ever after. My children are at stake. A beat of silence. Then Jonathan growled, So what? You're just done with me? After all we shared? Tears welled. She remembered fleeting passion, her heart pounding in his presence. Yet the guilt and destruction overshadowed every moment. Yes, she breathed. We're done. I have to fix what's left of my marriage, if that's even possible. Jonathan scoffed. He'll never forgive you. Don't be naive. Then I'll face the consequences, she said, voice trembling. But I can't be with you. Don't call me again. She hung up, tossing the phone onto the couch as if it burned her hand. Diana watched from the kitchen doorway, relief and worry mingling in her features. Did you just end it? Olivia nodded, tears cutting silent tracks down her face. It has to be over. While Olivia wondered if her text would ever get a real response from Stephen, she heard a sudden knock at Diana's front door. Diana opened it to reveal Stephen, jaw set, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. Olivia's heart hammered. Stephen, she whispered, stepping forward. He glanced around Diana's modest apartment, a flush of embarrassment or anger coloring his cheeks. Diana, can you give us a minute? He asked, voice tight. Diana nodded, quietly slipping into the bedroom. Now alone in the living room, Olivia faced Stephen, swallowing hard. He clutched a thin folder, a lawyer's folder, she guessed. The air felt heavy, as if bracing for a thunderstorm. I'm seeing a divorce attorney tomorrow, Stephen stated plainly, holding the folder. I wanted to let you know so you're not blindsided. Her eyes watered. Stephen, please, can we talk? Let me explain. His mouth twisted in pain. Explain what? That you slept with him? She flinched. Yes. No, I need you to know how sorry I am. It was a horrible mistake. He cut her off, voice trembling with hurt. You lied to me every day for months, and you want me to just sit and hear excuses? Not excuses, she croaked, stepping closer, tears falling freely. I have no excuse, I love you. Stephen's expression cracked, revealing a tidal wave of heartbreak beneath. Do you? He asked quietly. Because this sure doesn't feel like love. She reached for his hand, but he jerked away. I'm giving myself time to think, he continued, voice tight. Our kids deserve some clarity. Until then, stay here. I need space, and don't bring Jonathan near them, ever. She sobbed. I ended it with him. I promise. He stared at her, struggling to maintain composure. I want to believe you, he said at last, but I don't know how. Without waiting for a response, Stephen turned and left, the door closing with a dull thud. Olivia collapsed onto the sofa, grief racking her body. He's gone, and I don't know if he'll ever come back. Weeks pass as the crisis lingers. Olivia realizes she has one last chance to salvage her marriage. Stephen remains distant, but not final. Jonathan tries once more to contact her. Olivia decides her path. 2 tense weeks dragged by in a haze of uncertainty. Olivia remained at Diana's apartment, gathering every bit of emotional strength to show Stephen she was serious about making amends. He kept their children at his parents' for the time being, allowing Olivia brief visits. Each time she saw them, she fought tears at their confused questions. "Why are we staying here, Mommy? Why isn't Daddy with you?" She tried to reassure them with gentle words, praying that someday they'd understand. Meanwhile, Stephen's lawyer hammered out preliminary documents, though Stephen had yet to sign anything definitive. Faith reported that he was tormented with indecision, vacillating between anger and lingering love. Every night, Olivia drafted letters to him, long, heartfelt confessions, apologies, pleas for another chance. She texted him in measured intervals, ensuring she didn't bombard him. Sometimes he replied with brief updates about the kids or neutral statements like, "We'll talk soon." Cool autumn air nipped at Olivia's skin as she leaned on the railing, gazing out at the city lights. A swirl of orange leaves danced along the neighboring rooftops, a reminder of change. She gripped her phone, considering whether to send Stephen another message. "Give him space," she reminded herself, "but also let him know you're here." Her phone vibrated. Jonathan's name. Again. A weary anger flooded her. She answered in a hushed tone, "Don't call me." His voice slid through the speaker, pleading, "Olivia, you've had time to think. You see Stephen's going through with a divorce." She cut him off. "That's not your concern. But it is. I can give you a new life, Liv. Think about it. No guilt, no judgment, just us." She closed her eyes, sorrow weighing down. "Jonathan, you don't get it. I'm fighting for my marriage, for my kids. I'm done with you. I told you that." His frustration crackled in the silence. "You might not have a marriage left," he said coldly. "And if Stephen's being this cruel, why stick around?" Her tears brimmed. "He has every right to be angry," she whispered, voice shaking. "I hurt him. And even if he never forgives me, I won't run away with you. I'm done." Jonathan's exhale sounded sharp. "Fine. Don't come crying to me when he slams the door in your face." He hung up, leaving Olivia trembling with the sting of finality. She felt both free and agonizingly alone. "I have to accept whatever Stephen decides," she thought, "but I won't betray him again." The tension gradually settled into a strange limbo. Stephen hadn't signed the divorce papers, and Olivia hadn't moved back home. The children remained under his parents' care while Stephen readied the house for a possible separation. Faith mentioned he'd stopped sleeping well, always moody but not finalizing any decision. One afternoon, while Olivia was at Diana's kitchen table scrolling through job tasks, she saw a text from Stephen. "Can we meet? Tomorrow afternoon? My parents will watch the kids." Her heart lurched in simultaneous terror and hope. He wants to talk. Quickly she replied, "Yes. Where?" Minutes later, his answer, "The park near our old apartment, 2 p.m. She clutched her phone to her chest, tears welling with relief. This might be her last chance to show him she was serious about rebuilding trust. If he's willing to meet in the place we used to go for walks, maybe there's a glimmer of hope. She closed her eyes, inhaling a shaky breath. In less than 24 hours, she'd stand before Stephen and lay everything bare. I'll give him the truth, the apology, the promise. And if it's still not enough, then I'll face that reality. Olivia, determined to salvage her marriage, arranges to meet Stephen in a place meaningful to both. She confesses everything, including her emotional reasons for straying. Stephen sets conditions. Jonathan reacts badly, threatening to reveal more. A brisk, late autumn wind swept across the small park where Olivia and Stephen had once spent carefree weekends strolling in their early years of marriage. Now the place seemed subdued. Bare trees swayed overhead, scattering dry leaves along the winding walkway. Olivia shivered, both from the chill and the knot of nerves coiled in her stomach. She spotted Stephen sitting on a worn wooden bench near an old oak tree. He wore a navy jacket and dark slacks, his posture rigid. A small patch of sun highlighted the strain on his face, shadowed eyes, tense jaw. He's exhausted, Olivia realized, heart aching. Summoning courage, she approached. "Stephen," she greeted softly. He nodded, not meeting her gaze. "Olivia." Silence pressed between them, heavier than the clouds drifting across the sky. Finally, Olivia sank onto the bench, leaving a careful gap. "Thank you for meeting me." His voice was subdued. "You said it was important." She inhaled sharply, hands clasped. I need you to know the full truth. No more hiding, no more half-answers." Her eyes gleamed with tears threatening to fall. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice wavering. "I betrayed you. I lied. I acted like a coward." He swallowed, still staring at the ground. "Go on." Olivia exhaled shakily, forcing herself to speak. She explained how their growing distance, her sense of loneliness, and Jonathan's persistent attention had all collided at her weakest moment. She mentioned the guilt, the moment she tried to break it off, but failed. Her voice cracked when she described the day everything was exposed. "I know none of this excuses what I did," she concluded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "It was selfish and wrong. I fell apart, and I hate that I let Jonathan fill the emptiness I should have confronted with you." Stephen finally looked at her, eyes weary. "Why didn't you tell me you felt so alone?" She let out a broken laugh. "I tried a few times, but you were always busy, always rushed, and I didn't want to nag or seem ungrateful. It snowballed." His jaw tightened, regret flickering in his gaze. "We both let it snowball, I guess." They fell into silence again, the crisp breeze stirring Olivia's hair. A distant hum of traffic underscored the hush. At last, Stephen spoke, voice husky. "I love you, Olivia, but you shattered my trust. I don't know if I can ever look at you without seeing all of this." Tears welled. "I understand," she breathed, lips trembling. "If you can't forgive me, I accept the consequences. But if there's any chance I'm begging you to try—" Stephen nodded slowly. "I'm not making promises, but I'll consider counseling couples therapy. If we do that, I need you to cut Jonathan off completely. No contact. Zero." She nodded eagerly, relief glowing in her chest. "I already have," she said, voice tight. "He won't let it go, but I'm done. I promise." A faint flicker of hope crossed his face. "All right," he said, standing, arms folded. "I'll talk to a counselor. We'll see if this is fixable." He paused, swallowing. "But the kids, they've been asking for you. We'll figure something out soon." She gazed up at him, overcome with gratitude and heartbreak. "Thank you," she whispered. His eyes flicked away, still wounded. "Don't thank me," he muttered. "Just be honest. From now on." They parted with no hug, no reassuring closeness. But Olivia felt as if a tiny beam of light had broken through the darkness. "We have a chance," she told herself, tears drying in the cold wind. Olivia returned to Diana's apartment, spirits guardedly higher. She explained Stephen's tentative willingness to try counseling. Diana squeezed her hand. "I'm so glad," she said. "But be prepared for a long road. He's still hurt." Olivia nodded, phone buzzing at that moment. She tensed, checking the screen. Jonathan. Again. Diana frowned. "Are you going to answer?" Olivia set her jaw. "No." Instead, she typed a final text. "Don't contact me. I've chosen my family." Then she blocked his number, exhaling sharply. No more illusions. Across town, in a dimly lit apartment, Jonathan scowled at his phone as the message failed to deliver. His frustration turned into anger. "She's cutting me off. After everything." In a brief surge of bitterness, he considered sending proof, more photos, more texts to push Stephen into finalizing a divorce. But a flicker of guilt or fear halted him. For now. Olivia and Stephen begin counseling, trying to rebuild trust. They deal with Stephen's flare-ups of anger and jealousy. Family members weigh in, sometimes supportive, sometimes critical. A minor crisis, child's illness or other, offers a chance for them to reconnect. Gray rain clouds hung low over the city as Olivia stepped into the modest office of Dr. Baker, a marriage counselor recommended by Faith. The waiting area smelled faintly of lavender, potted plants adding a soft touch. Her heart lurched when Stephen arrived moments later, eyes still guarded but determined. He gave a curt nod of greeting. Together they entered the counselor's cozy room, furnished with comfortable chairs and gentle lighting. Dr. Baker, A middle-aged woman with warm eyes greeted them kindly. For the next hour, they delved into painful truths. Stephen spoke about feeling betrayed, humiliated, and angry at how distant they'd become. Olivia admitted her sense of neglect, her shame at seeking solace in Jonathan's arms. Dr. Baker listened, asked probing questions, helped them pinpoint communication lapses. At times, Stephen's anger flared. "How can I just forget those images?" he demanded, voice cracking. "Every time I see you, I picture him." Olivia winced, tears brimming. "I can't erase that, but I'll do everything I can to reassure you," she whispered, guilt pounding in her chest. Dr. Baker intervened calmly, encouraging them to express themselves without demeaning each other. She assigned homework, journaling, daily check-ins, focusing on honest emotional sharing. They left the session drained. Standing beneath the building's awning, the rain pattering on the sidewalk, Stephen gazed at Olivia. "That was rough." She nodded, voice gentle. "But it's a start. Thank you for going." He managed a tight nod. "We'll see where it goes." Stephen allowed Olivia partial reintegration at home brief visits when the children were there, shared dinners that felt strained but necessary for the kids' sake. Emily and Daniel brightened at seeing their mom, though they sensed the tension in the air. One morning, Daniel woke with a fever, listless and whimpering. Stephen, who had an urgent work deadline, looked overwhelmed. Olivia stepped in, gently cradling Daniel's head. "I'll stay with him. You can go to the office," she offered quietly. Stephen hesitated, gazing at her. He's wondering if I can still be trusted. But the worry for their son outweighed his doubts. "Thank you," he murmured, grabbing his briefcase. "Call me if he gets worse." She spent the day nursing Daniel, wiping his forehead, reading him stories. By evening, the fever broke. As Stephen returned from work, seeing Olivia and Daniel curled on the couch, a pang of something like relief or gratitude lit his gaze. "How is he?" Stephen asked softly, shrugging off his coat. "Much better," Olivia answered, weariness visible in her eyes, but also a gentle smile. "He even ate some soup." A moment passed, and Stephen's shoulders eased. "Thank you," he repeated, almost echoing the man he used to be caring, appreciative, for taking care of him. She nodded, her heart lifting. This small crisis had bridged a bit of the distance between them. Maybe we can still be a family, she thought, tears prickling, but the road ahead remained uncertain. Jonathan reappears, demanding one last meeting with Olivia. He threatens to expose more details if she won't see him. A final confrontation ensues. Stephen may step in. Olivia stands firm, cutting ties for good. Late afternoon sunlight cast long shadows across the parking lot of Randall and Associates. Olivia finished a counseling homework session in her car, journaling her thoughts before stepping inside for a quick errand. She and Stephen were slowly rebuilding routines, though she still divided time between Diana's place and brief visits home. As she headed for the glass doors, a figure emerged from behind a parked sedan. Jonathan, dressed in a rumpled jacket, eyes shadowed with tension. Her stomach dropped. She glanced around. No one else in sight. He approached, voice low and urgent. "I had to see you." Olivia's alarm bells rang. "I told you no contact. I'm done. Leave me alone." She tried to move past him. He blocked her path, face twisting in desperation. "You don't get it. I can't stand you throwing me away like trash. If Stephen's so great, why did you come to me in the first place?" Her pulse hammered. She forced a cold glare. "That was a mistake, and I'm paying for it. Don't make it worse." Jonathan's eyes flared. "Or what? You'll expose me? I could show Stephen every last text, every moment you told me you were miserable, that you—" Her fury ignited. "He already knows enough. I have nothing left to lose, Jonathan. You can't blackmail me into coming back." Rage and hurt swirled in his gaze. "You think he'll ever forgive you? You'll always be the wife who cheated." She trembled but stood firm. "That's between me and Stephen. Get out of our lives." A burst of footsteps echoed Stephen, striding across the pavement, face tight with anger. He must have driven here after a phone tip or instinct. "Jonathan," he said icily, "you have no right to be here." Jonathan sneered. "Funny seeing you rush to her side after ignoring her so long." Stephen's nostrils flared, fists clenched. "Leave, now, or I'll call security." Olivia's throat tightened, flashing back to the humiliating scene at the gala. Not again. She stepped between them, voice trembling. "Stop, both of you. Jonathan, if you have any decency left, walk away." For a moment, Jonathan looked as if he might explode with rage. Then he exhaled, shoulders sagging. "Fine," he muttered, turning away. "You two deserve each other." He stomped toward his car, slamming the door and peeling out of the lot. The tension lingered, crackling. Olivia turned to Stephen, tears brimming. "I'm sorry he showed up. I didn't—" He cut her off, voice quieter than expected. "I believe you." He shook his head, weariness etched in his features. "You did the right thing, standing up to him, thank you." Relief flooded her, tears spilling as she realized how close she'd come to another crisis. This might truly be the end of Jonathan's interference, the final resolution. Stephen decides whether to proceed with divorce or attempt full reconciliation. Olivia braces for any outcome. The story ends on a note of bittersweet closure or a faint glimmer of hope, depending on the chosen resolution. 2 more weeks passed, filled with counseling sessions, honest talks, and careful rebuilding. It wasn't smooth or simple. Stephen still battled waves of anger and distrust. Olivia still struggled with guilt and shame. Yet each day felt like a tiny step forward, a slow mending of the fractured bond. At last, on a chilly afternoon, Stephen invited Olivia to meet him at their home, no kids around, just the two of them. The living room felt both familiar and foreign as she crossed the threshold, heart thudding. Stephen stood by the mantel, photos of their children displayed. He picked up one frame, Emily's bright smile from years ago, and set it down gently. Then he turned to Olivia. "I've spoken to my lawyer," he began, voice measured. "I was close to signing the divorce papers, but I haven't." He paused, inhaling. "Counseling has helped, and I see how remorseful you are. I see you're trying, so am I." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "Stephen, I thank you." She swallowed hard, not daring to exhale relief just yet. He held up a hand. "This doesn't mean everything's fixed. There's a lot to repair. Trust won't snap back overnight." He glanced around the room, the echo of memories that bound them. "But for the kids, for us, I want to try rebuilding. If you're truly committed." Emotion thickened her voice. "I am. I'll do whatever it takes." A tentative shift softened Stephen's expression, something akin to compassion lighting his eyes. "Then let's do it. One day at a time. No more secrets, no more running away." She nodded fiercely, tears sliding down. They stood there a few feet apart, the silence heavy with unspoken vows of reconciliation. Gently she reached out, and this time Stephen allowed her to take his hand. The warmth of his palm was a fragile promise not guaranteed, but real in that moment. "Thank you," she whispered again, "for giving us a chance." He managed a small, weary smile. "We owe it to each other and to ourselves to try." Outside, the gray clouds parted just enough for a pale sunbeam to slip through the windows, illuminating them in a tentative glow. It felt like a quiet symbol of hope. Over the next days, Olivia began moving her belongings back, one box at a time. Stephen remained cautious, but each small sign of trust shared laughs with the kids, discussing finances. Cooking dinner side by side felt like a fragile step toward healing. There would be setbacks, arguments, tears. Yet the decision to keep fighting for their marriage had been made. Jonathan's shadow receded from their life, replaced by the work of true honesty and renewed commitment. And so, in that suburban home where heartbreak once threatened to tear everything apart, a cautious new chapter opened, one founded on painful lessons, but also on the resilience of two people who still dared to believe in each other, day by day, hour by hour.